Hi everyone, this is Igor from Amazonia PPC, and in today's episode, I will be hosting Chelsea Cohen, Amazon seller and inventory expert, also a co-founder of SellStock.com, where we'll be discussing a hot topic on how to avoid stocking out or overstocking to maximize sales revenue. Hi Chelsea, and thank you for being my guest.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Awesome. For everybody to know who you are, just give us a brief intro, how you started selling, when was it, and how you ended up being a co-founder of SellStocked.com.
Sure. So I started selling in 2014, and we made our first sale in July of that year, and became full-time sellers within a year of that. So I've been selling full-time for several years. And in terms of inventory management, it was something that I gradually recognized as a major factor in losing margin and losing profitability. Looked at, what are those things that I can actually control? I can't control competitors coming in or prices having to be, reduced or Amazon raising their fees, but I could control the inventory side of things and I could avoid stocking out or overstocking. And those were some things that were occurring in my business that were draining revenue and draining profitability. So I started diving into it, learning more about inventory management.
Yeah, awesome. The first thing that I noticed that back in 2014 and those initial years, I cannot think how, from my perspective and having in mind what are the current issues with sellers and all the mess that is right now with COVID and everything with inventory. Back in 2014, even then you realize how important it is. So
yeah,
it's a great head start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We didn't realize when we started getting into inventory management how much of a big deal, because we started the idea for SoStock started in 2018, and I was looking for a tool that would help me to automate the process, because as I dove in and started learning more about it and started really becoming more systemized with it, it was taking a lot of time to actually get things right. And so I thought, well, there's got to be a tool. And so I looked around, tried other tools, and those tools didn't seem to do what I expected them to do. They weren't giving me what I wanted. So I asked my mastermind friends, what are you using? And the answer kept coming back, well, we've tried everything. Nothing seems to work. We've gone back to spreadsheets. So that to me, that's a common answer. And even now we've got people who are still using spreadsheets, and we're talking 8-figure sellers even using spreadsheets. So I figured, that's an opportunity, me being on the entrepreneur that I am, never done, anything in the software world, but figured, I've got to, find someone. So I'll just find someone, just find someone, just very casually thought that I would just find someone. But actually 2 weeks after I made that decision that I was going to find someone and do a software, I met my business partner at an event. He was a last minute addition as a speaker at this small event right outside of Houston, Texas. It was a very, very intimate event, and he had been added as a speaker. So we started hanging out because he was friends with someone else that I knew. So we hung out the entire weekend as a little group, and he kept complaining that he was bored and he needed a new software project. I had already known him. Yes. And there I was, looking for someone for software. I knew him by reputation. I had used his software before. I had hung out with him that whole weekend and seen that he was a good guy and a smart guy. And so I thought, well, this is just serendipity. This is the way that it's supposed to be. And I pitched him on my idea, and he liked it. And so we started SoStock essentially.
Awesome. That sounds incredible. Can you tell us a little bit more about what was created out of those two brilliant minds? What are the key benefits? Obviously, compared to the other tools, we shall not name them, of course. But let's give our listeners proof why they should leave the Excel for good?
Yeah. Yeah, the big question, how are you different? Since, these other tools out there, we weren't solving the problem. What was it that we could do that was different? And so the idea was we needed to be more customizable. We needed to add all of the things that you don't have, a record of. So there's two parts to inventory forecasting. There's the one side is what happened in the past, and the other side is what's going to happen in the future. And so you can use past data, and that's sort of the science part of it. You can use past data, but then the art part of it is the future part, and it very much includes marketing. What are your plans for marketing? Because what happened in the past is only a portion of what could happen in the future. And if you've got lightning deals, or you've got PPC campaigns, you started working with a PPC agency and they said we're going to increase your sales by 20% on these SKUs, or you're working with an influencer and they think that they're going to move 1,000 units, based on a sale that they're going to do. All of those things are things that were not able to be done inside of other softwares. So that was a big part of what we decided to do, is putting in that customization, and then also being very understandable so it works like a spreadsheet. We took the spreadsheets and we said, what is working within this? And we actually, within the first 6 months, ripped out our entire forecasting algorithm and redid it from the ground up based on the spreadsheets of 7- and 8-figure sellers that we were working with. We said, give us your spreadsheets, tell us what's working. It's working, but it's not working well. It's prone to error. There are other things they wish that they could do.
A lot of manual
all
work.
That in. Yes, exactly. There was a lot of manual work. So we automated that, and then we added things that just really data-wise wouldn't be very possible with what you're able to get from Amazon's downloadable reports. It's what's available to Amazon's API, and also how to process that data more quickly.
Awesome. Yeah. The thing that probably most sellers really like about the Excel sheets is that, as you mentioned, the ability to customize everything, but it's really time consuming, and I don't see that working on a long-term basis. I mean, just putting so many hours into Excel sheets, and it's prone to error, as you said.
Yeah, exactly. You get one formula wrong, one little number or decimal off, and you have a problem. And the amount of time it takes to apply changes across the board, that was one thing that we made sure is that you could do bulk changes. So if you said, I'm going to have a sale and increase, the sales on these products, say these 40 products by 20%, you should be able to tag those products, and then with the click of a couple of buttons, make that change.
Yeah, what we've seen at Amazonia PPC, even there are two kinds of sellers, and both of those are experiencing big problems with inventory. One of those is really young stars, young by just starting on Amazon, where they see a huge spike in sales, but they were not prepared on the inventory side. And the other end is the experienced sellers who are just not able to grasp all that growth. So we saw them coming to us and they wanted to grow. So we helped them on our side with PPC and everything else, but then we issued a stockouts and like everything fell apart. So it's really, we really saw that inventory management nowadays especially is a crucial thing for being successful on Amazon. Not to mention all the other issues. So can you tell us from your perspective a little bit more how we ended up having such a discrepancy between marketing and inventory, and how sellers can benefit from that? It's easy for me to say about it, let's get better and that sort of stuff, but from your perspective as an inventory expert, what is it like? Do you have some key takeaways for sellers that really can help them today to move the needle in the right direction?
Yeah, so there are two things that I always say are needed in terms of building out your inventory systems, I mean, you know, the obvious things are, you know, you need to make sure that you're calculating your velocity correctly. And, you know, we talk about how we calculate velocity, but the other things to apply are something called buffer stock or safety stock. That is having that extra cushion, that extra bit of inventory. So, you know, let's say 30 units or 30 days supply, or, you know, you'll say 30 days supply at Amazon, and then also another 30 day supply at, say, your warehouse, for example. Having this extra bit of inventory in case anything goes wrong, and the more things that can go wrong, the more of that buffer stock that you need. So, you know, for example, you don't want to ship inventory to Amazon when you're just about to hit zero. You want to ship it in time, especially because it's taking 3 weeks to check in. You want to have enough inventory coming in. And sometimes, you know, you would keep buffer stock at your warehouse in China, some at your local warehouse in the States if you're selling in the States, and then other inventory at Amazon, so that you can kind of weather those storms. Especially, you know, a lot of people have been increasing their buffer stock, not inside of Amazon because of the restrictions, but outside of Amazon, simply because of the slowing along the supply chain since COVID. You know, we see it's going to be, there's going to be delays until, you know, potentially well into 2022. So the buffer stocks have had to be increased. That, of course, you know, makes cash flow a little bit more difficult, but there are certain things that you can do, you know, with your supplier by, you know, splitting up the payments and that type of thing. So that would be the first thing. And then the second thing that I always tell people to do is to get their inventory team and their marketing team to work together. That is extremely important. And that's not something that's often done because we started out as marketers. A lot of people that came into this business started out as marketers, or were only, you know, they were taught as much as they needed to be taught to get something live on Amazon. And then everything that is sent our way has always been how to increase sales, you know, how to increase conversion, how to increase traffic. And that side of things, when we are being given that message, and that's what we gravitate towards for, you know, 10 years. And then now we're being told, now we are having to really adopt this full holistic business mindset. You know, people talk about scale and they talk about how do you get more money. But inventory is that missing link between, you know, between marketing and cash flow and the ability to scale.
Yeah, I see inventory issues like a knowledge gap, you know, both for new sellers and experienced one, because nowadays Amazon sellers are so worried about so many things happening, not just the COVID. That can be an excuse for many things, but even without that, we saw a lot of sellers struggling with inventory, and that's, in my opinion, because they need to worry about so many little details that make their life so stressful as a seller, that kind of they neglect that part, which is the crucial one.
Yeah.
And for the new sellers, they're focused on starting out, choosing the product research and everything, and they're even not prepared for success.
Yeah.
And we keep telling because we get so many leads, and not all of them are unfortunately qualified to work with us, but we always try to give them something, at least as a takeaway from contacting us. And it's really often the case that we just share what we see, what we keep seeing, the issues that keep coming back. One of the things that I would kindly ask you to share with us a little bit more information about sellers who are just starting out, because for the old guys, it's a clear topic. But what was happening with the Brexit and the Great Britain and all of that mess that was created by leaving the EU? So what is it that they need to take into account and to plan if they're just starting out on the European markets?
Yeah, so if they're just starting out in the European market, that may not mean that they're starting out that they're including the UK in their strategies. We're seeing some people only working with the European market because of the Brexit. Because what has happened with Brexit is that, you know, they've left the European Union, and so there has become this kind of invisible customs wall. So anything that passes through that wall is going to incur customs fees. So you can no longer send inventory to, say, Germany and have it kept in Germany and then pass it to the UK, or send it to the UK and then pass it to the rest of the EU, because it's going to incur that fee. So it's going to be expensive. So when you are going to be launching in both, or you are currently selling in both, you need to kind of keep that in mind. You need to know, you know, whether you have to have, you know, that in both places, which normally you do. And they're actually, we just kind of dropped this on our website today. There is new restructuring of the EU VAT. So that's something for people to keep in mind. There is going to be, for people selling, you know, outside, who are established outside of the EU, there's going to be changes, and who are inside of the EU, there's going to be changes. You can go to Amazon.
That's new for me. I didn't hear about it. Okay, I'm gonna look at your website.
Yeah. So there's going to be, you know, VAT taxes, you know, imposed, even further VAT taxes imposed. Amazon's going to collect those, and so you have to, you know where to remit them based on your sales. So it's kind of like sales tax in the US. And so that's going in a little bit more. And then in terms of the UK, you know, you would have a separate VAT for the UK. So you have to learn some of those things, but then also on an inventory level, say you're shipping from China, you would have two shipments, one to the UK and one to, say, Germany or wherever it is that Amazon wants your EU inventory. So you need to track your velocities for the EU as a whole and the UK separately, so that you know the size of the order, and then you have to do separate shipments. So that's something to keep in mind, is that you're tracking those differently. And when Brexit was coming, we actually built a new structure for how you can structure your account to look at, you know, the EU minus the UK and the UK separately, so we can forecast, you know, orders to both of those places.
I see. Are you saying that right now it's easier and less expensive to import goods from China to UK and to other EU countries separately, rather than trying to move inventory between UK and the other countries?
I mean, you'll have to run the numbers because each shipment is going to have the per shipment flat fees. There are flat rates per shipment, and then there are rates per the size and the volume of the shipment. So it probably will depend on the amount of goods you're sending. Are the flat fees higher by sending two shipments, or is the customs fee going to be higher? Because when you send that inventory, it's going to get a customs fee to go into Europe, for example, and then whatever you send to the UK is going to get a second customs fee. So if you're sending to each place, you're just going to get that one, entry customs fee.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm thinking also maybe to some of the sellers, maybe having inventory filled, or let's say refilled in time, could be of a greater value than actually being more profitable. just a thought, because we saw a cases where they would even pay more. Some of them even be at loss, but to actually just have inventory to sell and not to lose rank.
Yeah.
But I'm probably not wrong if it's not only about taxes; it's about the time that it takes now on the borders to finish all the documentation and inspections and everything else. Am I right?
Yeah, it's taking a lot longer time. There's also kind of ships that are not able to get into port. There's a clogging of traffic at the ports. So you'll have, ships that'll be anchored outside of port waiting to come in as well, because there's such a slow. And then we had the Suez Canal thing, influenced people, influenced a lot of inventory coming in. When there's a big ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal, it held up another 300 ships. And so there's things like that you have to kind of pay attention to. But it is that there's just too much. There's too much of a delay. People are trying to get their goods, and everything is more delayed for that reason. So I would say, yeah, that's correct.
Right. So I'm getting to understand it finally.
Yeah.
So would you like to give us some of the key features of So Stocked and how sellers can benefit from it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the most important part of our software is the forecasting tool. That's been the most robust. We have worked with hundreds of sellers. I personally, when we were the first 2 years of building the tool, we're about 2.5 years out. So we're finally bringing on additional support team. But myself and my partner, Dan, were handling all the support because we wanted to get all of the feedback. We still have a system for getting that feedback. We have a small team, but that's been a big part of our approach. Is we wanted the feedback is coming from 7- and 8-figure sellers. These are guys who they've been looking for a solution and they see it in So Stocked, but they're saying, what about this? Let's tweak that. So the forecasting, it uses daily adjusted velocity, and that's something that Amazon doesn't do. And one of the reasons you talk about ranking, and stocking out affects your ranking. It also affects your restock limits. It lowers the restock limits. If you stock out and you're not making sales, Amazon's looking at your past, say, 30 days of sales, and they're saying, oh, well, you didn't sell during that time, so let's look at what you did sell, and we're going to give you storage based on what you did sell. They're not looking at your main product sells 100 units a day and it was stocked out for 10 days. So there's 1,000 units that you should have. So we should give you, 1,000 units times 3. We should give you an extra 3,000 units of storage. They're going to take those 3,000 units away if you stocked out and lost 1,000 units in sales. So that's one of the incredible things that is occurring, is that you've got these stock outs. So when we do the calculation, we actually factor the stock outs in, and we say, you would have sold an extra 1,000 units in that month. And so you need to order based on what you would have sold, not based on what you did sell, because you stocked out. So those are some of the main things, is that looking at your daily velocity based on what it truly should have been if you had been fully in stock. And then adding these additional plans, adding these marketing plans. Are you going to be increasing your sales by 15% due to a PPC campaign? Do you have a lightning deal? Do you have an email campaign where you're going to push an extra 1,000 units this month? All of those things that are now able to be added, and then being able to look back at, seasonality and say, what did I do last year? Did I have any stock outs? And then we'll plug in those stock out days with what you should have sold. And then being able to manually override. If you're launching a brand new product, let us know. You can type in there, I believe I'm going to start out selling 10 units a day. And you can actually project, new products as well and override any of the numbers. Or if you don't have any numbers, be able to enter that data in there.
Yeah, that's so many data points that you mentioned. Clearly, a food for thought for most of the people selling on Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. So, how people can get in contact with you, and what's the best course of action for them? Is there maybe a demo? I don't know really, or whatever. What is it that we can offer to them? The actions that they can take after there. So,
Yeah. So we have a sostock.com /connect. That's how you can get in touch with me. And it also gives you a link to book a demo call if you're interested in learning about the software. If you want to learn more about inventory management, I teach a course on inventory management via webinar. So you can click on a link there that will take you to the webinar. So you can learn about how to put some of these systems in place to be able to control your stock. And then
that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, and what is it that they can you share some bullet points from that webinar? What is it that they're going to end up learning about?
Yeah, how to calculate, your buffer stock. So what is it that you should keep in mind when you're planning on instituting buffer stock? How to put your, marketing plans into your inventory plans, and just various different, like, what are those mistakes that people are making? Why do people overstock? Why do people understock? And then putting systems in place to avoid the over and understocking. We've been looking at stocking out as a big problem, but we have now been confronted with a change in policy that makes us have to look at, overstocking. A lot of people are looking at their overstock, and it's actually becoming a marketing issue. The marketing team can't do their job until they get rid of some of that stuff. So the marketing team now has to actually figure out, how do we get rid of some of this stuff, or it just gets pulled. But the best way to do it is to do some sort of a flash sale and somehow market that inventory out of Amazon, because marketing the slow sellers out of Amazon will not just clear up that space, but it will also help you to gain more velocity. So, so we talk about some of these things, how do we understand the Amazon algorithm a little bit better so that we can work towards that?
Awesome. Sounds really interesting. As I said, knowledge gap is big, I think, on inventory. So I'm really glad that you and some of your colleagues are really out there for sellers to really fill that gap for the benefit. So that's really awesome. Okay, Chelsea, thank you very much for being my guest. Is there anything else at the end that you would like to share?
I think that it's just that, we have reached a point where, as marketers, it is our responsibility to get good at inventory management. I like to use the phrase, the term, playing the orchestra of your catalog. Marketers are now having to not just hyper focus on the best sellers, but actually market across their entire catalog. So some of the most important things that you can be doing right now to sync inventory and marketing are to have the inventory team create a report that helps to isolate not only the product that will stock out, but then also a report that isolates those slow sellers and those overstocked inventory. That's something that we have in SoStock, but it's something that anyone can do. And the inventory team needs to get busy creating those reports, and on a weekly or a monthly basis, sending them to the marketing team, because the marketing team really needs that data to be able to sell across the catalog.
Awesome. And I like the word that you said, responsibility. And it really is. It's a responsibility to know everything about inventory. Mm-hmm. Okay, Chelsea, thank you very much for being my guest. And again, sostocked.com, and that's where everything starts.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.